Hi, everyone. Kate Byers, founder of Corporate Women Unleashed. Welcome to today's live broadcast. We are talking about how to get out of survival mode. If you're a high achiever, you know exactly what I'm talking about because you have learned to live in survival mode most of your life. So remember back in college, you were probably the one who was up late at night doing the all-nighters. You were the one who took 15 or 20 credit hours a semester instead of 12 like everyone else. Okay, high achievers. We're always pushing ourselves. And eventually as we get into our mid 30s, 40s, 50s, we get tired of living in survival mode, right? If that's you, put a 1 in the comments below. I know I sure did. And it happened for me actually in my early 30s. And part of the reason it happened to me so early is that I was actually a single mom from a very young age. So where a lot of people in their 20s, you could commit all of your time and extra spare time to your career and building your career. I was always doing a balancing act because I had my daughter in college. So I was always having this pull of never being able to be where I wanted to be, for enough time, feeling guilty, feeling like I could barely survive and get things done. So for me, that burnout hit very early. So why do we live in survival mode? Right? Why would you even accept that as a way of life? Like we all know that time is limited. We all know that our journey here on earth is going to come to an end. So why would we ever spend any time in survival mode? Well, there's a couple of reasons, and you need to understand this because where we typically want to make change is externally, right? Like, oh, tell me, do you have a really great crockpot recipe? That'll just cut off some hours of my week. Now I won't live in survival mode. Well, it's not about your crockpot recipe. It's not about your new workout routine. It's not about all these other working smarter, not harder, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You have to start at the root source, which is your beliefs. And believe me, I thought this was all a bunch of hoo-ha when I first got started on this journey because I tried all the external changes and those didn't get me where I wanted to be, which was ultimately having this beautiful life that I was thriving in. All right, so here's the first thing is you have to understand that when we are operating in survival mode, what's really going on is this has been especially for highly driven people, but for all of us, we've been told this in our culture, right? If you're not working hard, then you're not really valuable, right? Because what happens in school? Kids who work hard, they really put in the extra effort, they get the A's, right? Well, that's not always true. I got a lot of A's in school just because I knew what I was doing. And I didn't even study. But we don't tell our kids that, right? We're like, oh, you got to work really hard. Look at you working hard. Ooh, you're working hard. Hard work. So what that does is it sets up this idea in all of our minds, at least in first world countries for the most part. Well, I shouldn't say first world countries. In achievement dominant first world countries, which is what we live in here in the United States, it sets up this idea that if you're not working hard, you're not valuable. So what happens when you work hard? You have to struggle, right? You're in survival mode. You're just barely getting things done. You're working hard and there's not much time for anything else. But boy, look at your focus and look at those results. And so what happens is it sets up this belief system that we're going to work really hard. We're going to get to this goal. And then we're going to enjoy that goal for half a second because we're high achievers and we don't ever rest for more than half a second or half a day. And then we're going to go again. And then we're going to do this. And so our whole life becomes this leapfrog game of hard work, suffering, living in survival mode, and a little bit of fun. And then hard work, and then a little bit of fun, right? And so we have this idea that if we're not struggling, if we're not in survival mode, you're not valuable. There's might be fear. For women, this is huge. We have so much fear about losing our place at the table, right? Oh my gosh, who's that person behind me? If I'm not in the meeting, I'm not valuable. If I'm not working hard, so what happens is we have all this fear pushing us into actions in our career, decisions, choices in our career that I have to show up to every meeting. I've got to be on every trip. I've got to be on every airplane. I have to be the person presenting in the room. I've got to be the one double checking the PowerPoint presentation, blah, 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 right? And so we create this coping mechanism, this belief system that says it's got to be me. And because that's going to make me, I got to work hard. I've got to be that person so that I am valuable in my career. And so what does that do? Those actions force you into what? Survival mode. And I love this because when we first start working with women, one of the first questions we always get is we have them do this exercise where they're looking across some of the choices they're making in their life. And some of the times women will say, how am I supposed to add myself into the mix? Because that's our big thing, right? Which is like, if you don't put your oxygen mask on, like especially at the executive level, if you don't do self-care, if you don't take care of yourself, you are not going to survive. Well, not only will you not survive, but you may be overweight and divorced, but all you'll have left is your career. And nobody is aspiring to be that woman executive, right? So if you're really going to survive and thrive at the executive level, self-care has to go into it. And then women will be like, oh my God, how am I supposed to do any more self-care? Well, you got to start making new decisions about how you operate and the choices you make. Now, it does not mean a trade-off. It does not mean we're going to let balls bounce. It doesn't mean that we're going to forget our work. It doesn't mean we're going to throw everything to our team and just let them, be delegated to. That's not about it. But you've got to change the belief system first, is that, well, life has to be this struggle, otherwise I'm not valuable. And if we're living in fear of losing our place at the table, if we're living in fear that we're not valuable enough, if we're trying to prove ourselves by work, because we've been told our whole life that that's what makes us valuable, you absolutely cannot create a sustainable solution for yourself that'll get you into freedom. You just can't. And we see it over and over and over again. Okay. So if you don't change your belief system and the compulsive habits, I'll call them that for lack of, for layman's terms, these compulsive habits and beliefs, doesn't matter what you do externally, it's all just a force of willpower until the next fear-based thought comes up or whatever, you get challenged, your world gets rocked in the office and you go right back to your old habits. Okay. So that's the first thing. That's why we live in survival mode so often, is because we're told that's what makes us valuable. And if that's what makes you valuable and you're trying to, be more valuable in your job and make more money and get promoted or whatever it is, then of course you automatically are living in a survival mode. Now, the second reason why we're willing to live in survival mode is because, like I said, you have this goal and you work really hard and then you achieve the goal and you work really hard and you achieve the goal. And it's this leapfrog, right? A lot of women call it like the roller coaster or like whack-a-mole. You get that mole over there whacked and then you run over here and you whack that one. And it's just this constant running, which again is survival mode. That's not thriving. You're not living in the moment. You're not enjoying your life. You're just running from one part of your life to the next. The reason we do that is this. We have these little moments of happiness, Oh, life is good. Like, for example, we just finished a 3-day holiday here in the States, right? So if you had this 3-day weekend and you stepped away from your computer and you had this permission, because women, we always need permission, don't we? You had permission to have 3 days off and you had permission to eat barbecue because it was a holiday. So you didn't have to watch your diet. Didn't that feel good? And you had permission to just, not have to get the kids ready for school because it's the end of the school year or whatever, right? And all of a sudden you have this glorious 3-day weekend and you're like, life's not that bad anymore as I think it is. Why am I always complaining about being in survival mode? It ain't that bad, right? So you've got this window, this little glimmer, or you'll have, you'll do something special on a Thursday night, like your kid's soccer game gets canceled and you end up going out for ice cream. And you have this glorious moment, with your kid or whatever. And what happens is we hold on to those moments and we tell ourselves, oh, it's okay. Look, no, life is good. I should be more grateful for what I have. And so one of our coaches, she calls it living in warm poop. I don't think she says the word poop, but you get my point. It's like, we know it's poop. We know it's really not that great. It's just kind of like, it's kind of a compromised existence, but it's warm, feels good. And we have these little moments of happiness. Oh, a little bit. And it's like just enough to take the edge off. So we put our head down and then we work hard once again. And then we get, we're going to get to the next goal. It's that next promotion. It's the next impressive thing we do. We're going to make it to that presentation. You know what I mean? And then off you go again in survival mode, struggling, suffering, telling your family, telling your friends, telling your health, telling your weight, whatever. Oh, okay, just give me one more week, one more day, one more minute. And then you get there and you have a little moment of, oh, that felt so good. Okay. And guys, I did this for, 20 years of my life. 15 years of my life. I would travel all the time, convinced myself I had to travel as much as I did, convinced myself that if I wasn't in the room, they'd forget about me and they would forget that Kate was this valuable person in the company, which is ridiculous. And I had all of these reasons and these rationales around why I had to be traveling and leaving my daughter at home. Okay. Now this was 20 years ago, guys. My daughter's grown at this point. I've got little boys now, but this was with my daughter and I would leave her at home and leave her with nannies. I remember one time I was in Thailand. I think I was in Asia, somewhere in Asia. It all blurs, right? And I got a call from, she was older. My daughter was like 12 or 13. And I got a call from the woman who's staying with her, the nanny. And she said, oh, we can't find your daughter. Do you know where she is? And I'm like, I'm in Singapore. No, I don't know where my daughter is. Like, what are those moments where you're just like, this is the reality check of my life. Like my daughter's gone missing and I'm in Singapore and I have no idea what's going on. Now it all turned out fine. She had just gone to a friend's house, forgot to tell the woman and you know what I'm saying? But it was like, I I've got to get my priorities straight here. What is going on? But I was so convinced that this is what I had to be doing. And this was the only way to rock this job. And this was the only way for me to have a thriving career. And this was the only way for me to care for my daughter, and on and on and on. I had so many excuses and rationale as to why that it was okay that I traveled this much, that I just kept doing it. I just kept doing it, right? Even though I knew deep down, I felt guilty that I wasn't there more for my daughter, even though deep down I knew that she needed a different type of parenting, or more of the type of parenting I was capable of giving, but not giving her enough of. All that stuff, right? Like, I knew that. Like, you guys know that. We know it. Like, you don't need me or anyone else to tell you. Like, we can look in the mirror, people, right? But we just covered up real quick because it's like, oh, but we had that wonderful weekend together for Thanksgiving. And oh, well, I'll be home by Thursday. Well, I cut the last trip short. Do you hear all the rationalizations? It's just all this stuff, instead of really looking down and saying, okay, is this really the life I want? So that's the clue. So you're like, okay, great, Kate. Now I know where this comes from. What do I do about it? Just that, what I just told you. You have to step back and take a hard look at your life and say, is this the life you want? Yes or no? So you have to make the decision. It always starts with the decision. And when we have calls with women who book in with us, that is what we help you do. We help you look at what is going on in your career and what is the impact on your life. And then what's the emotional consequence for you? Like, for me, I was walking around feeling like ultimately kind of a failure. I didn't feel so great about my life. I felt like a failure. I felt like I was failing as a mother. I felt like I was living a compromised life. I felt trapped. I felt out of control. Even though on paper I had amazing daughter, amazing house, amazing career, amazing checkbook, a bank account, right? I felt like I was failing because it wasn't coming together like the dream that I had, like what I really wanted. But I couldn't admit that to myself or anyone else. So the first thing you have to do is take a hard look at your life and say, is this good enough? If I die tomorrow, is this good enough? Is this all there is? Like, really? And it's okay for you to want more. Now the question is, how do you get there and what's holding you back, right? Because a lot of times we think it's something external. Oh, it's my job. Oh, it's my husband. Oh, it's the dog. Oh, it's the neighbors. Oh, it's my mother-in-law, whatever. It's none of that stuff. It's not your boss. It's not your company. It's you. It's you. It's inside of you. And when you can start looking at your life differently and saying, oh, wait a minute, I can make other choices. Maybe all these constructs in my head are really just fear-based limiting beliefs. I mean, if those ladies are doing it, why can't I do it? And ultimately, that's where I got to. I was just like, I am done. Like, there's got to be another way to live your life, because this living in this constant state of compromise, this constant state of knowing I'm not really showing up in my personal life like I could, knowing that I wasn't getting what I wanted out of my life. Yeah, I was getting a lot of things that I liked. That's true. But it wasn't ultimately how I wanted my life to look. That was when I could start having the wake up call and go, maybe I need to start doing things in a different way. So ultimately, that's what you have to do. So it starts with a decision. You have to decide that you want something different, that living in warm poop with a little bit of happiness here and there ain't good enough. Okay. So that's going to be important to you, because if it's not important to you, I can't convince you if it is, right? Like, it's got to be important to you. 2, you have to know that there's got to be another way, right? Because we actually talk to a lot of women. They're like, well, I don't really think it's possible. And we're like, well, okay. Like us and all the hundreds of women we work with, it's possible for them. But if it's not possible for you, I can't change that. So if you're going to entrench yourself and dig your heels in, like it's not possible. Okay. I mean, that's your choice. Like, right. So you have to decide that it is possible to live in another way, and to have the things in your life that are really important to you constructed in a way where it just flows and it's easy and it's fun. And it doesn't mean that there's not challenges or there's not like difficult periods in our life. Like, life happens, but like overall, the majority of your life is fairly effortless, and you get to have an amazing career and a beautiful time with whatever it is, your family, your spouse, or, whoever it is that is near and dear to you. And you're going to take care of your health and have a hobby and interest, and like have a life that you look back on and go, holy cow, this is my life. But we don't do that because we create all these excuses. Well, you have to be rich. You have to have people that, report to you. You have to have no direct reports. You have to have a simple life. I mean, guys, for every excuse that someone comes up with, there's a counter excuse that someone else is telling you that needs to happen, right? You need to be rich. You need to be poor. You need to have direct reports. You need to have no reports. You need to be in accounting. You need to be in marketing. You need to be in sales. You need to be the boss. I mean, whatever. It's all just stuff. Like, those are all just, again, external excuses. It's really about you making the decision and saying, I'm not going to let anything stand in my way any longer. I've tried it. It's not working. I don't have what it takes, or I need some new tools or whatever. And that's what I had to do. I had to go out and find the tools. I had to find the information. I had to put it together for myself. I had to try and fail. And it only took me 10 years, which is a little bit of a time warp that you probably don't want to do. And that's why we've compressed it all into, what we do, which is like, oh, well, now that we figured it out, now is like, will it work for other people? Absolutely. Right. And especially for women, like so much of this, guys, is in the construct of how women are raised in our culture. You're supposed to be a good girl, but you're kind of supposed to be a bad girl. You're supposed to speak up, but don't speak up too much because you could be a bitch. You're supposed to lean in. Oh, but you also have to lean out. I mean, like we are told so many opposing pieces of advice. It's no wonder nobody can figure this out. But when you learn to be authentic and say, wait a minute, I'm making a decision and this is what I want. And you get that somewhat clear on paper, like life, maybe you don't know what you want, but you know what you don't want. Then it's just a matter of like, okay, well, where do I need to go to get the tools and the resources and the information and the skill set to make this so, right? And then here's the things that are important to me in the process. Like, I don't want to lose my income, or I don't want to lose a challenging career, or I don't want to have to travel so much anymore. Like you got to have some, what's the word? Like some structures, like some commitments, some core values that are important to you, because otherwise then you're just totally changing for the sake of change. And that's not what you want. So you have to have a clearer vision and make that decision. And then you won't live in survival mode anymore. Now it's all about just thriving and continuing to make better and better choices and new actions that get you closer and closer and closer into that state of like, oh my God, this is so much easier. I love my life now. And that's what's such a gift, right? And women are missing out on that. And guys do this so much better than we do. Do they not? Guys just like go to work, come home and play golf, or go to work, come home and play with the kids, or go to work, come home. And I'm not saying there's guys that aren't workaholics and there's not guys who are stressed out. Like I'm not, this is not an all or nothing conversation. I'm just saying in general, men are more able to focus on one thing at a time and really switch gears and enjoy the moments of their life. And that is something that as women, we haven't been taught. And it is something that you have to learn and you've got to rewire because it is inside. It is not external to you. And just look at some men in your company or at your spouse or whatever, and you will see that guys do this much better than we do. So that's it for today's live broadcast. Thank you so much for being here. If you are a highly successful woman or a high achiever, just a high achiever, like you are that driven woman and you are giving up too much of your personal life, and we will put a link here below to a free presentation that I put together. It covers the 4 strategies. It's more on this same topic that I'm talking to you about today, but it covers the 4 strategies to really get yourself out of survival mode and into a state of thriving. Success does not have to have sacrifice. Watch that presentation and you can get a little bit more information. If you register and usually it starts fairly quickly, like within the hour or something, and you can't make it to that next presentation, just register for it. And a replay link will be sent to you by email. So then you can watch it in your jammies late at night or whatever. Do you know what I mean? You can have it at your convenience. So again, also pass this forward. If if this doesn't apply to you, that's cool. There's got to be another woman out there. Pay it forward. Tag her in the links below. Leave a comment, leave a question, and we'll come back in and continue to have this conversation. It's an important one for us women to have because you can be a leader. You can have an amazing career. You can be a phenomenal professional working mom or working, wife and still show up very attached, very hands-on, and very active in your personal life. It doesn't have to be a trade-off. So I hope this has been enjoyable for you guys. I'll see you next time. Again, Kate Byers, founder of Corporate Women Unleashed. Great talking with you.